Good morning, good morning, good morning. Tribe of Sims 2021, right back at you. This is our trilogy to disability and assimilation. So today what I want to start with, I've already started posting information and maybe six articles. I don't want it to get confusing. I want you to be able to try to keep everything together that we've discussed. And if you can't, the information's still there on the feed of Tribe of Sims. And the reason being is because, as I've told you, how we were educated, everything is misconstrued with our date system. So what you're missing is when we're going into the 1800s, as we'll discuss today, and we're dealing with a lot of these acts that are happening abroad that affect us in this land, they come back in this day and age, and they're going to overlap the timetable, and they're going to connect agendas with individuals that actually represented the truth of that agenda, but no longer stand for that agenda, and then they overtake it. Same as they done with Jesus. Okay, it's nothing. For example, Nancy Ward, as we discussed, was hailed the mother of vocational rehabilitation for her philanthropic work, dealing with a lot of mothers and children that we know were misplaced during the assimilation process. The problem is Nancy Ward passes in 1822. So how does Nancy Ward get the claim for being so having such philanthropic, approaches or, tactics to the people, when the Lunacy Act that I've shared with you, it was passed in 1845. The County Asylums Act of 1808, through 1845. This is another motion that basically deals not with the placement of individuals, but the security of land. Now, you can go look more into that. That's the County Asylums Act of 1808, and that's in Britain and Wales. So the thing is that you've been so focused on England, you've never got to learn anything about Britain. And Britain is controlling basically how England operates their political system as well as their tax system. It's the same system of Great Britain that is stemmed all the way from Rome. Okay, so coming into our land now, and we're dealing with the 1800s, you must remember, all we've had is a large mesh of mixed breeding. A lot of this is dealing with outside control, barren land that hasn't been explored or hasn't been commandeered by the powers that be. And the main thing that we need to realize in this portion of the session is that if we have so many individuals that parents have been taken from them, their parents are being displaced. Now you have younger individuals such as teenagers who don't have authority. Look at all the populations that would have been able to be a part of free time. So just as now, the intercourse would have been very high between individuals that were only allowed to mingle with each other. Now you have all of these individuals that get the same implementation that has happened from the war over in the Triple Crowns. So Britain is able to implement now the same strategy to secure the land, not to make a way for the individuals that are displaced that we are now saying are mentally ill. Mentally ill has been changed to patient. The patient eventually is then changed to the institutionalized patient. The inmate was the actual name of the original patient of the institution. The lunacy institutions of the asylums that were built were to actually put physical operations or physical applications of the Kindle or the Kinbrook. Let me look that up. It's I shared it with you, but it's the actual plan for the basic layout of the prisons, which comes from England, which comes from Britain. This has been the same implementation that has been used in England. So if you also realize that the word hospital, since you guys trust in the hospital so much, hostel is the correct word. The pit of the hostel is what is below the hostel, which is what has become the morgue. Okay, so when you deal with necromancy and all the witchcraft that is utilized to regenerate energy and then form it in another vessel, this has always been in motion from abbeys and monasteries that have bridged their cults into our world through different institutional practices. The abbeys and the monasteries have always utilized the same practices of golems that you would acknowledge with Frankenstein. So now when we come into this land, All they are doing is occupying our land with massive structures that do not fall under the same tax bracket as the land that they're taxing. So they've already created a double standard under a statute that has to do with the population, but the whole time it's got to do with their paper. And you can read this also in the Lunacy Act of 1845 because it specifically speaks about the agenda being greed-based, but then also population-based. So we're still figuring out a way to tax without representation, not just the people, but the land as well. So when you move into our time, by the time you get into the 1900s, remember in the 1970s, this is when they outlaw all asylums or the practice of asylums. The problem with this is all of the asylums that were built have already been built on a staggered plan to be phased out or to be phased up into a different curative process. That curative process being the correctional institution. The correctional institution didn't have to be rebuilt. It was already built. They continued the formation of these institutions. They continued the formation of this into our land, but under the same act. The act was made law in New York in 1845. That's the 1808-1845 Lunacy Act. But then it didn't pass in our land until 1850. 1842 was when the law was passed, but it wasn't actually built until 1850. That prison is called Utica or Utica, however you say it, which actually became Utica Prison in New York. So if you actually on your own go back and research all of the original asylums, you're all the way to Trenton, New Jersey. You're going to come up with all of your original federal institutions now. Okay. Very different tax brackets, which means in this day and age, the money is ridiculous because you have to realize the offset is crazy because every inmate convict is what? He's being paid for. He's being paid for under an insurance bracket by the government to be housed in a medical institution, not a prison. So it's a surplus off of the inmates and it's a surplus off of the land that the property sits on because the property itself is not taxed at the same value. So what we are dealing with now is something that has been built from the Lords of London. And this is very important. I shared with you a picture of Ashley Cooper. And the problem with this is Ashley Cooper is the heir of Roy Cooper. We're still under the control of Roy Cooper. Ashley Cooper was one of the 8 Lords of London, as well as the first Earl of Shaftesbury, who basically organized everything that we are under control of now. And you niggas worried about Donald Trump and Obama. You actually think that anything that they've done is relevant. It's not. It still stems from, and I also posted the first Carolina Constitution, which was also written and sponsored by the first Earl of Shaftesbury, who is the heir or one of the great-great-great-grandfathers of our now governor. He is the only Lord of London who paid back his share, which was a loan to come and build colony and government in our land. So what we're dealing with is not prison because we did something wrong. We've never been placed somewhere because of what we done. This system was built to catch us before we ever got here. Okay. So to watch individuals such as parents, family, friends, brothers, sisters, children, to watch how our own intermediate families and our kinship system has turned against those that have truly been free, that have came in this world and that have fought a system, however, not joined the system as if that was ever what you were supposed to do. We were never supposed to forget what was done, and many of you can't help it. How can you not help? Because you're not a part of it. Just because we're not the same color doesn't mean we're the same thing. I represent the people of this land, the southeastern Mississippian tribes that have been ran amok and have been bred and then incarcerated as institutional patients. Why? Because our original bloodlines are no longer pure. Our lines have been tainted, which means you're dealing with all types of different types of cultures, hereditaries, gene pools, all types of things are now being put in a different cultural system, which creates what? Mental instability. This mental instability didn't come from the actions. It came from the previous actions that born an individual into a new world where they were not able to function as they truly were meant to exist. This is the process of assimilation, to make you become something that they choose for you to be versus that you were sent to be. And this is the truth of our prison system as it is sent as a correctional process for the institutionalized man. Sidney Sims, Tribe of Sims, 2021. Please look up the information, investigate some of these things on your own, to continue to scream about prison and prison reform, and you niggas actually believe about a motherfucking expungement. You got to go research, man. None of this shit ever had nothing to do with us. It all had to do with them securing our land. They haven't built on all of our land. What takes up the most space on all of our land? Prisons. Picture how many prisons you have that are really our true reservations, the land that they dare not touch, but they put a prison on that land, and who still occupies our original land? We do. The true, the free, and the brave. That's why we're always put there, because they know we will always stay true to our original roots, and that land will never be touched and always be reserved. The true reservations are prisons. And this is why there are so many of us there. Not because we choose to do other than what somebody told us. You wasn't sent here to do what somebody told you. Sidney Sims, Tribe of Sims, thank you so much. Have a good day.